I think for me, social selling is really important, and it's about, well, probably everybody says this, but about relationship building. And I think that it's not only about personalization and customization and one-on-one connections, but I also think that social selling is really important in terms of building your personal brand. I think it's key, particularly as we've gone more virtual over the past couple of years.
Welcome to the Making Sales Social podcast, featuring the top voices in sales and marketing. Join hosts Bryn Tillman and Bill McCormick as they discuss the best tips and strategies they are teaching their clients so you can leverage them for your own virtual and social selling. Here are your hosts, Bryn Tillman and Bill McCormick.
Welcome to Making Sales Social. I'm Bryn Tillman. We have two guests today. First, we have our very first co-host guest, Michelle Baker, who I have become friends with over the years. Met her through Women Sales Pros. Absolutely love her philosophy around sales. And because our guest today is Heidi Solomon, who is writing the new book, Heels to Deals, and both Michelle and I are in it, we thought, hey, doesn't it make sense to kick Bill off the stage and have Michelle Baker be our co-host? Michelle, welcome. You are our very first co-host ever.
Thank you for having me. And I love the synchronicity or serendipity of the fact that we are all in the book together and that we are all like fast friends and really supporters of women in sales and B2B sales. And just, this is going to be so fun. I'm looking forward to it.
So we're excited. And I'll correct and say you're our first guest co-host ever, because Bill is actually a co-host. So we're excited. We're thrilled. Hopefully we'll see lots more of you. So now I'm going to welcome, hello, Heidi Solomon, Girls Who Sell. Very excited to have you here. You are on a mission to really promote women in sales. So please tell everyone a little bit about you.
Yeah, thank you, Bryn and Michelle. I'm so excited to be here with the two of you today. It is totally awesome. And I just want to say how thrilled and honored I am that the two of you are going to be in the Heels to Deals book. It's a chance for us to amplify the voices of rock star women in sales and demonstrate how women are really dominating in the business to business sales profession. So thank you. That's my only plug, I promise.
Yeah, no, we'll mention a few times because we want to dig in and talk about what we're going to learn from that. But before we do, we ask all of our guests the same question. First question is, what does making sales social mean to you?
Yeah, I think for me, social selling is really important, and it's about, well, probably everybody says this, but about relationship building. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's not only about personalization and customization and one-on-one connections, but I also think that social selling is really important in terms of building your personal brand. And I think it's key, particularly as we've gone more virtual over the past couple of years.
I love that. Well, thanks so much. And I'm going to kind of just ask Michelle real quick, since she's sort of a guest co-host, what does making sales social mean to you?
I would just dovetail off of what Heidi said, and it's really about creating relationships. So I tell people more transactional, less transactional, more relational.
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
And when it's social, you're focusing on adding value to the person, and it's more of a partnership. It's a relationship where you get to work with them. And we see the businesses that last and thrive, they are establishing and keeping those ideal clients. They're keeping a pool of people who come back to them, who repeat. I call it repeats, referrals, and recommendations make up what we call the raving fan client. And you can only have that when you're social, when you know about them, when you had conversations and know things that are outside the product, service, or offering. You're really engaged with the person, the human behind the sale.
I love that. Thank you. So,
and maybe even a little celebration along the way. How's that?
Yeah. A little party, maybe
a little partying, social selling, little partying along the way.
Exactly.
Work hard, play hard, right?
And that's
There
the
you go.
social part, right?
It is.
There you go.
So I love that. So Heidi, I'm going to ask you
Yeah.
the first question around what inspired you to put together Heels to Deals? Like why now? And, what is the inspiration behind putting that together?
If it makes sense, Bryn, maybe I can give some background on the journey to Girls Who Sell, because I think it's part of our mission. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have been, in sales for over 30 years, started my career in advertising and marketing. And like so many other women, maybe there's a handful that, woke up one morning and said, business to business sales is my calling. But for me, that was not necessarily the case. And while my father was a huge influencer on me and role model, because he was an entrepreneur and still today one of the best salespeople I ever knew, I fell into sales, right? It wasn't an intentional career choice for me. And I have had a 30-year career in business process outsourcing, which is a complex, high value, long sales cycle, business to business sales. And when I started in BPO over 30 years ago, it was significantly male dominated. In fact, fast forward even 30 years from then, and it's still significantly male dominated. And I was the only woman at the table. So it was really important to me throughout my career to be a mentor and sponsor and role model for other women. But I had always done it within the context of the organizations that I had worked for, because I didn't have a lot of female role models along the way. I had a few, and I had some great male mentors as well, but I didn't have a lot of female role models. So I wanted to be that. I wanted to be that person. And after the death of my parents, both of my parents in 2019, it was a really emotional and difficult time for me. And so I took pause in my life and really started thinking about my career and how I wanted to give back and what did I want my legacy to look like. And I decided that what that was going to be for me was to get very intentional about democratizing sales for women. I think B2B sales is the best profession in the world. So how do we get more women into it? And so that was it. Girls Who Sell was born. I started in late, 2019, we started putting our business plan together. 2020.
So can I ask you a couple questions on
actually, 2020, we Girls Who Sell was born, and we launched in January 2021. So yes, of course.
No, because I want to get into some of the meat around this, which is really exciting, right?
Yeah.
So why do women dominate, or what is it about the qualities in a woman that dominates sales?
Yeah. And Michelle, I'd love your perspective on this as well. But I think that, I know, women have the innate personality traits to be successful in sales. You talk about social selling and relationship building. That's what women are all about naturally. And I don't want to put people in buckets or stereotype. I understand that we're all complex human beings, and there's a lot of men that do this too. But in general, women are more relationship oriented. We have higher levels of emotional intelligence, which plays well in sales. We're detail oriented. We are solution focused. So there's, a lot of just innate skill sets. And there's a great article, by the way, which was really one of the foundations of why Girls Who Sell was born, which is the Harvard Business Review article, which talks about how women are the future in business to business sales. I happen to think that women are not the future. I happen to think that we are now, and we we always have been. But okay, that's the name of the article. But that article talks about how women have the personality skill sets to be successful. And in fact, we consistently and significantly outperform our male counterparts.
I'd like to hear Michelle's comments on that question as well. Why are women so good at sales?
We're good listeners too, active listening skills too.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with everything Heidi said. In addition to that, I think about the fact that women tend to be nurturers. So there is this component around emotions that are a huge part of selling and buying decisions that men don't tend to, to handshake. Women want to know details, like she said. We want to know why. We also want to know about you. There's a propensity for a little bit more caring that tends to happen when a woman is involved, right? And like she said, the details, they can quickly assess when someone else isn't emotionally struggling. Whereas a male, that dominance tends to not exist. They just want to get to the business at hand. And you often hear them say business is business, it's not personal, which doesn't make sense to me. Business is business of humans. It's a contact sport. If there's nothing else, it is very personal.
All business is personal.
Yeah, and I believe that appreciating and all of the little components that really solidify and make relationships strong and open doors, women are masterful at.
Oh, I just add one thing, just on the active listening part too. I love everything you said, Michelle, but one of the things that I heard, which really resonated with me, is that we all listen, but women and men listen differently. Women tend to listen to understand, whereas men listen to respond.
Oh, that's a big one.
In, because when you think about what Michelle said in terms of women being really good at creating solutions, right, and solving problems, I think it starts with the strength of our active listening skills, and we want to understand the problem.
Yeah, I would agree with her, because that's that tendency that they just want to fix it. Right.
Yes.
And we want to understand it. Right. So
that we're fixing the right thing.
Remember the old book, women are for Venus and men are for Mars. It's that whole principle that's kind of what's happening right now.
Yeah. And I do want to say out there are some women that are like men in sales world. And there's some men that, have that empathy. So it's not necessarily a blanket statement across the board, because there are people like a Larry Levine who selling from the heart, awesome. Right? Like there are, so I don't want to put a blanket thing that all men are this way and all women are this way, but we do have some innate traits and it's a typical thing, not a everyone thing. Yeah. And Michelle, add to that.
Yeah, no, I just I was thinking about what Heidi said and where she is right now, and being in those rooms with all those men, which many of us, who are where we are now have experienced. How were you able to maintain and keep that intrinsic ability to keep the details, to be relationship oriented, right? To foster all of that when you're surrounded, because what sometimes tends to happen is women will harden themselves, right? To stay in the industry, to stay in their roles. There tends to be I call it a hard coding that will sometimes transpire. But for those like yourself who have evolved and created a space to bring up the next generation, you have stayed attentive to what your great skill was, and you honed it, and now you're giving it to others. So how were you able to do that?
Thank you. It was intentional. And for me, it was all about authenticity. That when I started in sales, so many years ago, and didn't have a lot of role models. And I was surrounded by so many men. And at that time, and think about it, deals were getting made on the golf course or in the strip clubs or at the bars. And no, I'm serious, Brent. I mean, that's what it was, going to cigar bars. And for me, I didn't feel comfortable in those situations. First of all, I suck at golf, despite to my dad's chagrin, because he always, I think, had visions of father-daughter golf tournaments. And I was a competitive athlete and an alternate on the U.S. equestrian team. So I rode horses, but
Awesome.
golf was never a thing for me. So deals on the golf course was not going to ever be a reality. So I mean, I joke, but it's actually serious because I had to find a different way. And for me, when I tried to be more like a man and sell more like a man, it felt inauthentic to me. And it didn't work. And guess what? Customers could see through it, and they knew, they could sense that that level of being uncomfortable. And so once I just owned it and said, you know what? Our hashtag is hashtag sell like a girl. You know what? I am going to own that. And I am going to be authentic to myself as a woman and use the skills and the traits and the things that make me unique, particularly in a very male-dominated situation. I stood out. It was actually great that I was a woman because they weren't used to dealing with too many women. So they're like, well, this is different. I think I'll have to listen to you. And I kicked ass, right? I've sold well over $1 billion in revenue and have created thousands and thousands of jobs around the world in my 30-year career. And so It worked. Yeah. And I've never looked back.
So one of the things I find interesting is, I started my career in hospitality, but I learned at the age of 16 when I was waitressing at Friendly's that if I had sold appetizers and desserts, I got a bigger tip. Right. So I knew very early on that selling was kind of in my blood. Right. So when I graduated with a hospitality degree, I also became a mom for the first time and recognized hospitality hours are terrible, but sales, man, those are good hours. Right. Like so sales really became and I accidentally started in a call center actually and moved into sales from there. But it became really interesting for me because my parenting and my sales career, becoming a new parent and starting a sales career was exactly parallel. And I recognize, and this is a little like sell like a girl, is the way I could convince my 2-year-old to do things was very similar. And I hate to use the word convince, but the way I could have a conversation was very similar to the conversation I could have in sales. And a lot of it is just getting to what they need, right? How do you negotiate with an unreasonable 2-year-old? You need to find out at the core what it is that's bothering her. You need to, because if you can't get there, you can't reason. But if you can identify at the core that I really want ice cream, but I didn't know how to express it, or, my foot hurts. And so now I'm ornery, right? So, but when you could do that, you could be a much better parent. And when you could shift that thinking into sales, you could be a much better salesperson. And so I think the parental skills that you have as a mom also can translate. And that is in its simplest form. Michelle, add to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, what I clearly hear you both saying is that it's that ability to authentically it's like you're relaxed. You're no longer trying to get someone else to do something. You're completely clear that this is in their best interest. This is going to help them. This is going to benefit them. So how do I communicate this in the way they need to hear? So it goes back to that active listening that Heidi talked about and that differentiation, right? Being authentic, not trying to tell them what you think they want to hear, because for some, as humans, we actually can sense when someone's being disingenuous, and people don't realize that, but genuinely wanting to be valuable to someone else. And when I think about the social selling, how we started this conversation, that's what happens when you are posting, when you're commenting, when you're doing all these other parts of sales. When you stay in that authenticity, when you stay in that genuineness about why you enjoy selling, why you enjoy helping someone, why you enjoy conversing with them, it makes all the difference. And I
Yeah,
love that this is what brings us together, because we all have that thread of that through everything we do.
I agree. And I think that it's interesting. We just launched Girls Who Sell Academy this week. Michelle is one of our
That's awesome.
mentors, and we have a fabulous international group of students that is going to go through the first #Explore Sales program. You may go through this course and decide sales is for you, but there's a lot of different, career options in sales that you may be able to consider. And it's not all just a bag carrying, sales professional, right? But one of the things the reason I bring that up, Bryn, is because one of the things we talked about is that sales is a life skill. So regardless if you end up, being in a traditional business to business sales role, you are always selling, no matter what you're doing, whether it's trying to sell a 2-year-old, and overcome, why they're having their meltdown, their objections, and understand why they're having their meltdown at the moment. We've all been there. Any mom has been there. In fact, I often joke, if you've ever tried to convince, a 5-year-old, to, that they have to go to bed, or your teenager on why they have to do their homework, you're in sales, right? So you're in sales. But, you're even, just in an executive role or being in entrepreneurship, you have to sell your idea. You have to sell a budget. You have to sell a marketing plan. So sales is a life skill beyond just, being
tell me
a job opportunity.
So if we have someone in sales listening right now, or someone a woman who wants to get into sales, quickly as we wrap this up, because we're getting close on time, 3 tips that you would give them, 3 things that they should do right now.
So the first, I think it all starts with education, and to learn as much as you can about sales. And I think, it's about time that we dispel the negative perception of what sales is. And it's prevalent, particularly amongst the college-aged and high school-aged young women that we're working with at Girls Who Sell. So take time to learn and connect with other women who are in sales, so you can really understand what the profession is and what it isn't. So that's the first thing. As you get into sales, I would encourage anyone listening that they should find a mentor, and
that's a good one.
And so that they should, connect with other women that are going to help them on their sales leadership journey, or other men. It could be men as well, but people who are going to mentor them and sponsor them along the way. And then the other thing that I will scream it from the rooftops, you will never hear me stop advocating for this, is that women need to apply for jobs regardless of whether they meet 100% of the qualifications or not. One of the biggest problems that we have right now, is that women feel like they need to check, all the boxes, and just think of a qualifications list as aspirational goals, and not any single person is going to meet 100% of them, but apply anyway.
Men do.
Men do if they meet, I don't know. I don't think there's any formal study on this, but, informally it's been said, men, if they meet 50 to 60%, of the qualifications, are like, that's not a bad average.
We're like, if it's not 100%, why bother? Well, don't do it.
Yeah, and we're just like, well, I'm not, and it's more because we're worried, I don't want to waste anybody's time, or, I won't be successful, or, so that we're concerned about that. I will tell you, the only way that we are going to get more women in sales is if, 1, women view it as a viable career option, and 2, they apply for jobs.
I love this. And I think there's so many great takeaways from today. Yeah. I am so grateful to have.
Bryn, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
before we wrap, and I know we're at time, but I feel like I never answered your question about why Heels to Deals came
Okay, go
out.
ahead. Yeah, that's great.
I just want to wrap with, not only is there a significant disparity of the percent of women in sales, but when you start peeling back the onion in terms of women in sales leadership and women of color, the numbers are just get progressively more dismal. And I feel as though as we look to position sales as a career option for the youth who are our future, right? Mm-hmm. It's not me. I'm at the back end of my career. It's really the youth coming up that are the future of sales, that it's important to share stories, and sales is storytelling. And so for me, there is no book out there that is about sales that's amplifying the voices of diverse women in sales from around the world, that's also published by a female publisher who happens to also be a woman of color. So it's really, really unique and special.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we got that in. So that's great. And I am honored to be part of this. I know that Michelle is
absolutely honored.
And we did not even know it until we had both even submitted our chapters. And so it actually, the universe keeps bringing Michelle and myself back together. So it's kind of cool. I'm loving that. So this was really great. I really love this. I'm so thrilled to have Michelle Baker as our first guest co-host, and just as honored to have Heidi Solomon, Girls Who Sell, with her new book, Heels to Deals. Thank you all for tuning in, and just make sure the next time that you're out and about that you're making your sales social. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening, and join us again for more special guest instructors bringing you marketing, sales training, and social selling strategies that will set you apart. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest episodes from the Making Sales Social podcast. Leave a review down below. Tell us what you think, what you learned, and what you want to hear from us next. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play. Visit our website, socialsaleslink.com, for more information.